Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this webinar. This is the Pakistan and Central Asia opening of the Glocal Evaluation Week. My name is Dugan Fraser. I'm the Program Manager of the Global Evaluation Initiative. As I hope you know, the Global Evaluation Initiative is committed to building national monitoring and evaluation systems as part of our commitment to the systems that strengthen governance. Today's session is an introduction to the Glocal. The actual Glocal sessions are happening next week. So this is a regional launch. We are having more than 370 events next week, and we hope that we will see you participating in them. As you know, the GEI is part of a larger network that includes 6 CLEAR centers, IPDET, Better Evaluation, Glocal, and a number of other partners. We're looking forward to talking more about how we build evaluation so that it's in a better position to meet the needs of our very stressful current era. And I'm looking forward to hearing the panel. And our host today is going to be Amna Akil, who is the director of CLEAR PCA, CLEAR Pakistan and Central Asia, based in SERP in Lahore in Pakistan. Amna, I'm delighted to hand over to you. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Dugan. And thank you everybody for joining in. So good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to today's webinar, The Language of Evaluation, Bridging Clarity, Access and Inclusion in Emerging Systems. I'm Amna Akil, as Dugan has already mentioned. I'm Director for CLEAR Center, which is Center for Learning on Evaluation and Results for Pakistan and Central Asia. And I'll be moderating the session today. So before we begin, just a few quick notes. Please feel free to use the Q&A box for any thoughts or questions. But if you would like to share your own experiences or make some comments, you can do it in the chat window as well. For interpretation, you all would have a globe in the bottom of your Zoom window. So please feel free to go and choose the language that you are comfortable with. So with that, I am extremely pleased and delighted to open this session as it marks the official regional launch of Glocal Evaluation Week 2025 for Central Asia. Glocal overall is starting the session from the 2nd of June till 6th of June, as Dugan mentioned, with 377 events. So we'll be seeing you in those sessions, and we are hoping that you will be participating and engaging with us there as well. So thank you once again for joining in for this session. So I would like to begin with a simple reflection. Sometimes the longest step forward is the one taken after pausing to understand. This idea sits at the heart of our conversation today. Because in complex policy environments, understanding the context and building trust is way more essential and imperative before we move towards change. Across Pakistan and Central Asia, we are seeing a growing interest in evidence-informed decision-making. We also understand and we are wary of the fact that countries in the region are at different stages of integrating M&E into their planning, policies, and implementation processes. Alongside this momentum, we are also seeing some very encouraging shifts. For example, national development strategies are evolving. Demand for capacity building is rising. There's a strong emphasis on using data to inform policy and implementation. These are all great news. But as the systems are expanding and evolving, a key and foundational challenge is always on the onset. And that is that how do we use or how well do the terminologies, terms, tools, and frameworks of the global M&E system connect with how evaluation is actually understood, interpreted, and applied in the local context? And trust me, from experience, in many cases, this alignment doesn't come naturally. Terms like monitoring, impact, evaluation, theory of change, they're formally adopted, but their meaning can very widely vary. In some settings, they're viewed as simple administrative exercises, focused more on reporting, compliance, audit. And what we miss out is that these are rather tools for learning and reflection. And when that happens, the result isn't just slower uptake. It's a missed opportunity to build evaluation systems that are meaningful, inclusive, and grounded in practice. That's why today's discussion will not just focus on translating many terms from one language to another, but it's also about understanding how language shapes meaning, how the words we use influence whether evaluation is embraced, how it is practiced, and whether the people involved feel that they understand it, they have a stake in it, and they can meaningfully contribute to it. So, inclusion here is just not about from the lens of participation. It's about making sure evaluation is accessible, relatable, and relevant to people and institutions it's meant to serve. At Clear PCA, we are continuing to deepen our understanding of how each country and institution is shaped by its own trajectory, administrative structures, and operational realities. From co developing training content to adapting tools that resonate with institutional needs, our aim is to support governments in building systems that are both credible and locally grounded. And to unearth this further and go into discussion, we are here joined today by this extremely thoughtful and wonderful group of panelists who bring deep insight from their work across institutions, sectors, and countries. And they'll help us explore what it means to make evaluation more inclusive, accessible, and usable. And with that, let's begin. So, I would firstly like to take a few moments to introduce our esteemed panelists. Firstly, we have Dr. Saltanat Rasulova. She's a seasoned evaluation specialist with extensive experience in international development. She currently serves as a regional evaluation advisor for Europe and Commonwealth of Independent States at the UNDP's Independent Evaluation Office based in Istanbul. Before UNDP, Dr. Saltanat worked as a regional evaluation specialist at UNICEF's Europe and Central Asia Regional Office. Our second panelist is Sofia Yushanova. She's a regional evaluation specialist with UNICEF, supporting 11 country offices across Europe and Central Asia. She brings over 15 years of experience in evaluation, evidence generation, and social policy. She has led a number of complex evaluation and strengthened national evaluation capacities in data scarce environment. Previously, she worked with UNICEF, UNFPA, and UN Resident Coordinator Office. Our third panelist is Natalia Kosheleva. She's an international evaluation consultant with nearly 3 decades of experience in the field. Since 1996, she has led numerous evaluations across Eastern Europe and Central Asia. A native Russian speaker, Natalia has played a vital role in advancing evaluation knowledge in the Russian language, including contribution to the Russian version of UNEG norms and standards, and a module on transformative evaluation inspired by Dr. Donna Martins. Our next panelist is Khairinusa Rasulova, and she's a monitoring and evaluation consultant at the Secretariat of the National Development Council under the President of Tajikistan and a JICA consultant on climate change adaptation and mitigation. With over 18 years of experience in civil society, she has championed inclusive development using a bottom up approach. From 2020 to 2024, she served as chair of Eurasian Alliance of National Evaluation Association, supporting evaluation capacity across Central Asia and Russia. And last but not the least, we have Chimje. She is the founder of Mongolian Evaluation Association, as well as CEO and founder of Cognos International, an evaluation and research firm specialized in the field of social economy, market, agriculture, environment, and health in Mongolia. She has 15 years of professional experience working as a researcher and evaluator for many of the UN agencies, World Bank, ADB, and the European Union, among others, as well as government agencies, including the National Statistics Office and the private sector. I give you a very warm welcome to the session. And with that, I would first like to address and ask Dr. Saltanat that from your experience, how does language influence how evaluation is understood, accepted, or resisted? And what implication has that had for M&E practice in your context? And the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm very honored to be part of this panel. Greetings from beautiful capital city of Tajikistan, Dushanbe, where I'm currently working in a mission. But I am actually from Kyrgyzstan, so one of the Central Asian countries. So good morning, merhaba, salam alaikum, salamatsis, kandaisis. These are different languages, but they all convey the same greeting. However, they also carry unique cultural nuances. For instance, in some contexts, Salamat Sizdar is not just a hello, it is a wish to your good health and well-being. So if anyone responds with their account of how they are, don't be surprised you did ask. This highlights how even simple words can have layers of meaning, reminding us that in evaluation, as in greetings, understanding context is key. So thank you for this opportunity to contribute to this vital conversation. Across Pakistan and Central Asia, national M&E systems are advancing, often through new laws, statistical reforms, and institutional mandates. But a persistent gap remains between the generation of data and its actual use in policymaking. One key but underexplored factor is language. Not just literal translation, but how evaluation is understood, communicated, and accepted or not in national systems of value. Terms like impact, evaluation, or efficiency may have no direct contextual equivalent in languages like Kyrgyz, Uzbek, Kazakh, or worse, they may be interpreted in ways that evoke control or punishment, or could even mean something irrelevant. When the national M&E systems rely too heavily on global terminology without local resonance and understanding their meanings, we risk undermining uptake, ownership, and the legitimacy of evaluation findings. But furthermore, we risk disconnecting even before we connect. To explore this issue of language and evaluation, I'd like to turn to Rodney Hobson's distinction between the language of evaluation and language in evaluation. I will also draw on social linguist Catherine Wooland, who reminds us that language ideologies, the implicit beliefs we hold about language, shape how we think, govern, and relate to each other. I also would like to recognize that the scholars and thinkers in Central Asia, such as Abdurraf Fitraf, Ulbolsun Parmatova, Oksana Shatalova, and others, have also been exploring how language shapes identity, governance, and power in our region, reminding us that linguistic ideologies are not imported concepts, but are also rooted in local intellectual traditions. So language ideology is not an abstract theory for the Central Asia. So let me begin with the language of evaluation. This refers to our evaluation tools, frameworks, and technical vocabulary, the conceptual architecture we use to define value. At first glance, these terms may seem neutral, but as Wooland shows, language is never just descriptive. It carries power, historical path dependency, values, and institutional worldviews. This is what she calls language ideology, the bridge between how we speak and the social structures our speech supports. For example, when the ministry interprets evaluation as a form of audit, it may resist data sharing or avoid commissioning reviews. This is not always or necessarily resistance to accountability. I would argue it is more than a simple misalignment of meaning or misinterpretation. It is a cultural disconnect. Language becomes a practical barrier to building trust, relationships, and connections. The belief that only one standardized technical language or set of values is valid leads to what Sanjeev Sridharan and April Nakaima term heterogeneity blindness. This narrows the space for national adaptation across Central Asia and within each country, undermining local ownership of evaluation systems. And it is also important to note that although we are talking about Central Asia, we all 5 countries are quite diverse. But language is not only what we write in reports, it's also how we speak and engage in practice, which brings me to the language in evaluation. This refers to how evaluators communicate during interviews, group discussions, validation meetings, and policy dialogues. Here, tone, metaphor, body language, and framing all matter. If we speak only in technical terms, we risk alienating not just communities, but also local officials, parliamentarians, and civil servants who are essential for data uptake and policy traction. However, it is not an issue of technical versus simple language. You know, sometimes it is like you hear a song in a different language where you don't understand any word, but actually you connect. In evaluation too, people need to feel that connection, that what is being said resonates with their experience, their values, their way of making sense of change. So there, so a language is not only what we write in reports. A national M&E system is not just a set of tools. It is a communication system, one that links ministries, connects government with citizens, and ultimately shapes how evidence is used to govern. If that communication does not happen in a shared and trusted language, then there is no connection, and ultimately the system will struggle to function, no matter how well designed its components may be. So language in evaluation, too, is never value-free. It reflects who defines the term, who gets to speak, what forms of speech are seen as credible, and who decides what matters and for whom. As UNDP, our role extends beyond introducing global tools. It is to foster national, responsive, and inclusive M&E systems. At the 2024 National Evaluation Capacities Conference in China, over 500 participants outlined key actions to support global efforts in achieving the SDGs by 2030 through evaluation. A critical action of the Beijing Declaration is the emphasis on embedding evaluation as an integral function within public service policies and programming. If we want evaluation systems to thrive in Central Asia, we need more than infrastructure or frameworks, or even more than common language. We need shared meanings, articulated in local languages and grounded in national concepts and values. Only by connecting, not simply sharing the same language, evaluation will become part of how governments think, plan, and manage public services. The integration of evaluation into governance institutions must go hand in hand with the integration of evaluation into national languages, values, and ways of connecting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saltanat. I think that was a very rich and thought-provoking contribution. And I really, major points that you were mentioning, I think it really resonates with us when you mentioned that evaluation, it's a complete communication system. It is one that links ministries, connects government with citizens, and ultimately shapes how evidence is used to govern. Specifically when you mentioned that, not a lot of times people are afraid of evaluation, but it is just the misalignment of understanding. And because the terminologies do not resonate with the local context. And that also, of course, that leads to the risks of undermining ownership and uptake. With that, we will move to our next panelist. And we have Natalia Kosheleva. And Natalia, I would really like you to address that what are the key motivations and challenges when translating technical M&E terms, because that is something that you have been doing in the past. So please, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you, Amma. Thank you, everybody, and welcome to this workshop. And really, thanks for raising this important topic because you're finally starting talking about the language. Let me start my presentation first. Okay. Okay, can you see it? Okay. So here I wanted to share with you my 25 plus years of translating evaluation texts and concept into Russian. I'm a native Russian speaker, born actually not even in Russia, but in the times when it was USSR. And as many people who came to evaluation pretty much occasionally, but got hooked in the profession and stay in this field. And just to remind colleagues a little bit of history, the evaluation came to Russia and Central Asia and actually all former USSR countries in 1990s, after the fall of the Soviet Union, when the international development organizations came and along with the development programs, they brought evaluation of these programs, which were initially done by international specialists, international consultants, but eventually Russian and national specialists in other countries were involved, first as junior or national team members or also as evaluators. And usually those were bilingual people, but actually because as local, as nationals were exposed to the trade, this spurred interest to the evaluation in the community, and people in Central Asia and Russia who were practicing evaluation were trying to develop their own language, how we speak about evaluation. And the first, I guess, because Russian was the common language for the former USSR area, that was like the first common language of evaluation profession in the former USSR area. So, and in addition, also in mid-1990s, the first evaluation capacity building activities started. So, and again, they were targeting the nationals, and Russian was the main language for those activities. So that's how the need for translation of evaluation terms into Russian emerged. And actually, I happened to be one of the people as bilingual person who had some experience with doing evaluation in English language. I was summoned to do and got involved in translating the first text. Actually, I'd like to give credit to UNICEF, who invested heavily in the 1990s in building evaluation culture in Russia and the Central Asia and other former Soviet countries. And then in the year 2000, the national specialists in the region who used Russian as their main working language formed the International Program Evaluation Network, IPAN, that worked till 2015. And one of the tasks and the goals this network put to itself was to develop the vocabulary and the language to be able to speak about evaluation in Russian, and that was seen also as one of the tools to promote the practice of evaluation in the region, including Central Asia. And interestingly, it's like the immediate challenges we faced there. First, they had to do with the differences between English and Russian language, because English is an analytic language, and I won't go too technical, but it pretty means you can convert a noun into an adjective easily. It's like you have a rail, then you have a railroad, and then you have a railroad bridge. You cannot do that strict in Russian. To turn a noun into an adjective, you have to sort of reshape the word, adding suffixes and endings, and like we have all this system of declination, and I won't go that much, but that really creates a lot of difficulties, especially with translation of the terms, especially like what I've learned through the period, sometimes really to translate a 4 or 5 word English term like utilization focused evaluation or impact evaluation, a lot of things, you really end up with a paragraph in Russian so it makes sense. And when we start translation, it's very difficult to kind of go away from the text. You are really tempted to go with a word-to-word translation, which doesn't make much sense in Russian. And that's the first challenge we faced. And especially, that's a huge challenge for people challenge for people who don't kind of have much professional knowledge in the area of evaluation, and they just translate words, and that's really not working very much. That's really one of the challenges we faced when we were bringing international colleagues to workshops to the region, and like you listen to a translator and then you quickly understand that like the translation doesn't make any sense, but you need to be kind of it requires substantial knowledge and evaluation to understand that. Another, I guess, huge challenge we face is that like in English you have the pool of synonyms that you can sort of borrow and and use as terms and use in definitions. At least there are 4 English words that are very close in general meaning, which are evaluation, assessment, appraisal, and review. And in Russian language, we have only one word that translate this as a translation for this 4, which is оценка. And it really limits like our options and creates a huge difficulty in translating, because the common definition of evaluation is that evaluation is an assessment, blah, blah, blah. And we cannot translate that in Russian. So the sentence statement evaluation is an assessment just doesn't translate into Russian at all. And that's a huge challenge, because we cannot really differentiate the professional terms of evaluation and assessment of something like risk assessment, needs assessment. Take it all just for English-speaking colleagues. Imagine you don't have this, you don't have these 4 terms. You have only evaluation, how you would go about talking about your professional skills. And that's a huge issue, because like both assessment and evaluation from the technical text gets translated as оценка, the same word, which creates a lot of confusion, and we constantly have these discussions here. And my favorite really, when I hear English-speaking colleagues discussing that this is not evaluation, this is more of assessment, I just imagine how we never can have this conversation in Russian. But that's really how the language affects everything. In addition, it's not always true for Russian, but it's just happened that, for example, we don't have exact Russian equivalents for many terms used in evaluation. For example, from the 1990s, we struggled with translating of outputs, outcomes, impact, which are really common language used in the conversation. And I just made this table probably not comprehensible to English-speaking colleagues, but just to give you some flavor of how many versions we have for that, and especially probably for impact. And again, also, we don't have exact language equivalent for terms like relevance, coherence, empowerment, emergence. That is a new word becoming common in evaluation language due to systems thinking. And also in Russian, it's difficult, almost impossible to differentiate between effectiveness and efficiency. So it's really very interesting how the system of words created, the terminology created in one language sort of doesn't want to get translated into another language. It's very, I guess, a big issue that's difficult to discuss, because you have to be bilingual to understand that, but it's really a big one. Well, also, I think because of these language differences, and we have a bunch of comprehension challenges, because we have the word оценка in Russian means like is used in all kinds of contexts, and oftentimes is used in a way, in the context where an English colleague would use the word assessment. It's always really used in like definitions of other activities. For example, the word is already used in many regulatory documents, because it has this also one of this general assessment meanings, for example, and it's used to define other type of activities. For example, in one of the laws which I looked is the law of Kazakhstan on the state audit, adopted in 2015, this defines audit as analysis, pretty much evaluation and inspection, which already creates this confusion because it's then it's very difficult to kind of put Atsenka as a standalone activity. And in addition, and that's the beauty of the profession that I really like, but evaluation is very versatile, emergent, diverse, and multifaceted. So you cannot really convey all the difference and the beauty and the diversity of the profession in one way, because evaluation can look very different in different contexts because of the methodological diversity, approach diversity, and everything. But it also complicates comprehension because you cannot learn it quickly. Also, and again, one of the challenges, I think, it's really to understand how it works. It can be learned by doing. It's very difficult to really, for a person to grasp it, how you do evaluation, what it means without doing it, because really I know several examples when people, the policymakers, really grasped and became evaluation champions, but then you look in their biographies and their personal histories and you realize that at some point they've got the chance to work as evaluators. So I think it's one of the challenges in comprehension, that it's difficult to understand what it's all about without some professional experience. And also, I also think that's the challenge, that it's given that probably people in governments and people in high government positions, they don't care that much about the terms. They care about their tasks and their needs being addressed. That's why right now we have pretty much two parallel practices that use very close terminologies and exactly the same set of methodologies, which are evaluation and performance audit. Because if you look at their current guidelines and toolboxes, you see exactly the same of terms, except that instead of the audit, instead of evaluation, they use audit. So they have audit questions, audit criteria, audit matrices, and the same data collection and tools. And I guess that's again creates, because a comprehension issue. So because people don't see what's the difference between an evaluation and performance audit in many cases. Oh, that's the challenges we face. Oh, what are the solutions? Actually, I think that the professional community of people who speak the same language is a great solution, because here I bring examples. Again, apologies for the colleagues who don't speak Russian, but it's really, I guess, a good practice when international organizations involve local evaluation, national evaluation associations with people who know the language and try to create this language, body of language and terminologies, is to translation of the glossaries or evaluation standards. In the upper example, you can see that's the Russian language edition of the OECD DAC glossary terms that was done by OECD without involving. And again, you see that evaluation is defined as evaluation. In a sense, like when Russian Evaluation Association and IPN were involved by UNEC, then we translated evaluation as analysis. So it's at least you don't use the same word as a term you are defining as a definition. Also, I think it's really important to kind of involve bilingual evaluators and build a national evaluation. That's a really good way to exposing national people into the evaluation practice, and also kind of pushing them to translation. And also I think that really evaluators need to talk together and speak in their national languages. And I think that evaluation conferences are a really good place for that. But that creates the community, and that's where people listen to each other, and we listen to each other and how we use the terms. We can even discuss how we translate the terms, and there's more and more of this discussion. So a good example, I guess.
Natalia, I'm very sorry to interrupt, but your time is up. If you could just,
thanks. That's one. The conference, I think we need to talk more in local languages. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you so very much. I'm so glad that you focused on the challenges of just simple, linguistics. It's We are not even talking about the interpretation and meaning of it, but we are just focusing on the equivalent words in different languages, and how it further increases the gap in how the expectation is of how many should be used versus the actual implementation on ground. I also understand, the key points for me is that grasping evaluations, diversity, it takes time. So it is not something that you could just hop on and, start doing, but you need time. And as you mentioned, that, it takes learning by doing. So that, of course, comes with its own set of challenges. But I also liked a few ideas that you mentioned here, that, engaging with the local VOPs in order to localize your terminologies, and even working with bilingual evaluators, and of course, the conferences that you mentioned. I think that's a great way to encourage a conversation. So thank you so very much. And with that, we move on to our next speaker, and Ms. Risolova. I would like to ask you that, based on your experience of supporting Tajikistan's national evaluation system, how has the term evaluation typically been understood across institutions, and what led to the decision to create a glossary? What kind of challenges were you trying to address or resolve through that process? So over to you, Kharin sir.
Thank you very much. Good morning, dear colleagues, esteemed panelists, and all participants. Thank you for the opportunity to present our experience in improving M&E in Tajikistan. It's a true pleasure to welcome you to this important webinar, which the language of evaluation, bridging, clarity, access, and inclusion in emerging systems. I'm honored to be part of this discussion today. As a monitoring and evaluation consultant at the National Development Council, I researched the current situation and challenges of M&E in our country. This was a valuable opportunity for us to study the root causes of the M&E problem in depth. Let me answer for your question. In my experience, what has evaluation usually meant to people in different government structures here? And why did we decide to create a special list of terms, like a glossary of terminology for evaluation? What problems were we trying to fix? Well, for a long time, the term evaluation was often mixed up with monitoring, sometimes with audit. Many institutions didn't fully understand the difference. Monitoring was seen as just keeping track of activities as they happened, and it was not considered to be more than that. However, evaluation, which involves looking back to determine and if a program was effective and what its real impact was, often didn't receive the necessary attention. This lack of clear understanding caused problems. One major challenge was the absence of clear, standardized method for both monitoring and evaluation. While in Tajikistan we had laws and regulations number 115 and 181 in place, we lacked easy to follow instructions. As a result, different government offices are collects and reports information in their own ways, without a single agreed upon way to share information. It was difficult to compile and compare data across different areas. As the main evaluator, Minister of the Strategic Planning documents in Tajikistan, Minister of Economic and Development and Trade often received reports in different formats, which made it difficult to compile and compare all the information. It was also difficult to see how the plans were connected to the desired results. Additionally, we did not clearly demonstrate how our actions would lead to specific changes. Therefore, we decided to create a special guideline and glossary as its annex for improving the formulation, monitoring, and evaluation of the strategic planning documents. This was to ensure that everyone understands the terms. Let me show you our experience through my presentations. So, let me to give you a little history. Tajikistan started evaluating its poverty reduction strategy back in 2002. Since then, we have created many strategic planning documents to help our country grow in balanced way. By the way, now we are in Tajikistan approved more than 230 strategic planning documents. Right now, our main plan is a National Development Strategy 2030 or NDS 2030. This big plan is put into action through short-term, mid-term development programs. And these programs then guide our plans for different sectors, like health, education, and for local areas like cities and districts. Our system for checking progress and judging results is based on government rules, and the Ministry of Economic Development and Trade helps bring all these efforts together across the country. As you see in this slide, strategic statement of Tajikistan and sustainable development goals. This picture shows how Tajikistan plans are connected to the World Sustainable Development Goals. The SDG are in front of the National Development Strategy. These NDS 2030 is broken down into 3 midterm development programs for different times of period. Now we are on the stage of development, the third midterm development program, 2026-2030. Here you can see how our system for checking progress or judging results is set up. The National Development Council, led by President, oversees everything. The Ministry of Economic Development and Trade acts as a main ministry reporting to the government and parliament. We have 14 groups that work together from different government offices, and one of them focuses just on monitoring and evaluation of the result of these strategic planning documents. 13th working group is from MNE. In this interdepartment working groups, we are also invited the members of this group, the development partners, civil society, private sector, academia. It means it's a wide platform for discussion for 14 topics under the Secretary of NDC. These groups, they help connect our work to global goals, national plans, and local programs. However, we have noticed a problem. While we work well together at the national level, it's harder to coordinate at the local level. This is because local groups often don't know enough about what the main council is doing. So it's important to set up more local working groups to improve communication and teamwork everywhere. In this case, you can see the challenges and future directions. Evaluation we have some kind of problem tree and objective tree, which are now shown in evaluation. And evaluation isn't recognized as a productive job. Some people think that I'm not officially assigned to MNE job. Big workload with MNE. I have a very few chance of training on MNE. I don't know well now to conduct MNE. And as a decision of these problems, just something. Do you see my slides? Sorry.
We can see your slides.
I just this one. And evaluation, as of we now thinking about the decision to transformation these problems to the goals, and official assignment of MNE, it's one of the main tasks for the future. And conducting the periodical training opportunity through the Academia of Civil Servants is another decision for this problem, and skilled staff is managed in each ministry, and common guidelines of M&E at hand. So another, sorry, some technical problems. I cannot change my. I tried to type, sorry. And as you see, this is change starts from the not from the now. It was happening for several times. Therefore, it's one of the decision of this is to start training institutions, and these steps for sustainable human resource development and M&E it's our answer for this one. In framework of cooperation of MEDT with JICA, since 2021 was created several trainings to the civil servants, and they had some 3 times of educations in Japan. We have to make sure that we have enough skilled people for evaluation. We have a big training program. It was we are training more than 300 people who are trained. They are colleagues, and in the total now we have more than 100 people who are already trained. According to this chart, you can see that we try through the support of JICA advisors. It was the first advisor was Nino Hiroshi. He is developing some kind of training process for the civil servants in MEDT and other ministries and agencies who are involved to the monitoring and evaluation of strategic planning documents. Now we are on the process of the creation of the human resource development system through the development the sustainable courses in Agency of Civil Servants, Academia of Civil Servants. This is our goal in this time. As you see, what was the steps for elaboration of the glossary of M&E terms? To solve the problem to everyone using different words, we created a special list of terms. What was the history of these terms? For the M&E courses in Japan, it was necessary to organize translation from Russian into Tajik. And therefore, advisor development, the short glossary of 40 key evaluation terms was developed by him. And on the base of this short glossary in 2022 to 2024, we grown it to include 55. And now, after this decision to create the guideline, we're thinking about that we need more terminology included to this glossary. And now we are developing the glossary with more than 120 terminology. It was divided in several items. As you see, this is table of this.
My apologies, Lisa, but if you could just wrap it up in the next 30 seconds.
Yes.
That would be...
Thank you. Sorry. Just you can see this glossary. It's in 3 languages with explanation of this terminology. Another point of view, we try to develop the summaries for the guideline. It was in easy and very attractive format. We divided into 3 steps: formulation, monitoring, and evaluation. What is our perspectives? The glossary should address the linguistic and language translation, and it will be useful to all other countries because it also included the Russian language, and this language is used by other Central Asian countries also. English language already. included to this guide glossary. And after approval by the MDT, the guidance will be the main document for increasing M&E capacity in Tajikistan, including all the main stakeholders. This is on the basis of this guideline, we plan to conduct a new M&E HRD system and hope we can cooperate in this case with other colleagues. Thank you so much for your attention. I hope we can create a good M&E culture, evaluation culture in regional in close cooperation with other colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Niso, for sharing your extensive experience in Tajikistan. And while you mentioned something, I've seen that way too many times in other countries and even in Pakistan, that while people think that they're doing evaluation, what they're actually doing is monitoring. So they also equate monitoring with evaluation, and that is a lot of confusion that happens. Also, what really stood out in your presentation was that Tajikistan, how they've used, or you guys have used the glossary, not only just as a technical tool, but you've used this to bridge national alignment, turning it into a shared language, which can be then, shared as a practice across different levels of government. So you've tried to institutionalize it and embed it within the systems. And I think with that learning, we can move on to our next speaker. But I'll just take a moment and I would like to let my panelists know that there are some questions in the Q&A chat. And please feel free to go and, if you want to answer any of the questions, please be my guest. So with that, we move on to Ms. Sofia Yushinova. And Sophia, what I would like to ask you is the drawing from your work on the UNICEF study and your broader experience in the region, what have been some of the key challenges of how M&E is understood and practiced, and how do you think some of these misinterpretations can be constructively addressed? And I'm sorry, but I'm requesting if you could, just take 10 minutes of your time and not go over that. So please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, Amna, and good afternoon, everyone. It is a great pleasure to be here today. A lot has already been said, and I am grateful for the many insightful contributions made by the speakers before me. Rather than repeat, I'd like to build on what has been shared and invite us to look at one critical dimension: how we understand, interpret, and localize monitoring and evaluation tools, approaches, methodologies in complex and evolving systems. Challenges of interpreting the evaluation in the region go far beyond the technical capacity. This was already mentioned by the speakers before me. And I would like to highlight also that these challenges are also rooted in the history, in language, in systems of governance, and even in the trust. In our region of Central Asia, the legacy of top-down control and compliance reporting has deeply shaped how evaluation is perceived. Often, evaluation is still equated with the inspection or audit, and sadly, sometimes even punishment. But evaluation, as we understand it today, is not about fault finding. It is about learning, accountability, and ultimately better outcomes, in our case, for children and communities. Today, I would like to walk you through lessons from Central Asia, a region rich in diversity, but facing common challenges in embedding a culture of meaningful evaluation. Each country in our region offers a case that challenges us to think differently about how evaluation systems are introduced, owned, and sustained. To understand the evaluation system in the region, UNICEF conducted analysis reviewing the evaluation systems of Central Asia through a child lens. The work has been initiated by Saltanat, who is we're speaking today, and Natalia, also we're speaking today, and was finalized with the country offices when I joined the regional office. So let's explore how we can move from misunderstanding to momentum, from mistrust to national ownership, and why translating evaluation into local languages and realities is not just a linguistic exercise, but a political and development one. With that, allow me to share my presentation. I hope you can see my screen. So why it is important to understand the meaning of evaluation? Monitoring existed in the Soviet era, and we know that all Central Asian countries are post-Soviet countries. And in the Soviet era, monitoring was primarily for compliance and reporting to central authorities. Evaluation, as understood globally today, as learning, accountability, evidence for decision making, didn't exist in that system. Legacy systems were often top down, bureaucratic, and not transparent. Countries inherited weak institutional mechanisms for accountability and evidence use. Monitoring and evaluation was often introduced through external aid programs and donor requests. And as a result, monitoring and evaluation was often perceived as donor driven and not nationally owned. And right now, we in the region observe that many times it is forgettable that evaluation is mostly for the learning purposes, to learn how we can improve in the future. Common misinterpretation in evaluation include first, as already was mentioned, is terminology and language. Evaluation has no direct translation in many local languages of Central Asia, and it was also highlighted in Natalia's presentation. Often confused with inspection or audit, there are also some capacity gaps. There are limited number of trained professionals who can tailor the methodologies of evaluation to the specific context in Central Asian countries. There are political sensitivities. Evaluation may be viewed as threatening to institutions, and that's why not perceived or not very widely used in the evidence-based policy planning. Also, the fragmented systems, multiple ministries may have uncoordinated monitoring and evaluation efforts that could lead of not connected results or not using evaluation evidence when planning a new policy. And there is a lack of demand. Weak culture of evidence-based policy making lead to the fact that the policies could be developed without the lessons learned that are usually presented in the evaluations. The main root causes for this misinterpretation, as I mentioned, is institutional monitoring and evaluation capacity usually weak. Policy and legal frameworks are underdeveloped, and currently many of the countries trying to update their legislation or regulatory documents for better policy planning. Limited awareness of evaluation value, dependency on external consultants, and translation and cultural gaps. I am not going too deep into the results of the study that UNICEF has conducted. It will be shared here in the chat, I guess, and it is publicly available. You can learn more from this study that we will share today. From a brief overview, we can see that, for example, in Kazakhstan, monitoring and evaluation viewed as compliance only. But currently, the government of Kazakhstan is interested to apply innovative approaches in order to have a quick and real-time evaluation of the national programs. And currently, the government is advancing in using the machine learning and artificial intelligence in analyzing the impact of national policies. In Kyrgyzstan, the country that initially was a leader in applying evaluation culture, it started from some resistance, but due to lead champions within the parliament, Kyrgyzstan advanced in developing the legal systems as well as applying the evaluative thinking in policy planning. Unfortunately, currently, this development's a little bit stagnated due to parliamentarian changes. In Turkmenistan, there are some challenges in promoting evaluation culture as learning exercise, and mostly evaluation is considered as external or donor-driven, or it is used as a control tool rather than a learning tool for the improvement of the policies. In Tajikistan, the government has initiated some steps in improving the situation, and we just heard what has been started with JICA. In Uzbekistan, we observed a rapid recent reforms, yet evaluation capacity is still under development, but country has initiated a number of steps in order to advance the evaluation culture in the country. For example, they have completed the MESA analysis that provides a detailed overview where the gaps are and what needs to be improved. Which strategies could be applied in order to address misunderstanding? Of course, is to promote the national ownership of evaluation, reframe evaluation as a learning and not policy, tailor training to the local needs, and embed evaluation into the planning and budgeting, and empower champions with the institutions. Based on these suggestions, there are a number of good practices that are emerging in the Central Asia. We just heard about Tajikistan. In Turkmenistan, we observed the inclusion of the capacity building in evaluation into the National Action Plan on Child Rights that was approved by the President. In Kyrgyzstan, the Kyrgyz Evaluation Association plays a key role in promoting the evaluation agenda. In Kazakhstan, use of machine learning models to predict vulnerability and simulate the impact of social programs more accurately and efficiently. And in Uzbekistan, the government has incorporated the evaluation mechanism into its national development strategies. For instance, the Uzbekistan 2030 strategy emphasizes the importance of public administration reforms and the role of evaluation in achieving effective governance. What we are doing as UNICEF to support the governments in using the evaluation for policy planning. First, we are supporting countries with building the national evaluation system. We are advocating for the equity-focused evaluations. We conduct a number of trainings and mentoring for the monitoring and evaluation professionals. These trainings one of them is Excel, the training dedicated to the executive leaders on using the evaluation for policy planning. And second one is Impress, also directed towards the government employees to improve their understanding of monitoring and evaluation terms. Supporting evaluations that promote child rights and evidence-based social policy. At the same time, even though a number of achievements were made, there are limited national funding for evaluation. There is also a risk of evaluations being used symbolically rather than for real policy shifts. And there are capacity constraints, especially at the sub-national level. These constraints are related towards not only using the language of evaluation as well as applying the methodologies that are very rapidly developing currently. And there is a need for greater involvement of children and youth into the evaluation. What we can recommend in order to improve the situation is to build the political will by framing evaluation as an enabler, not a critique. Develop localized terminology and training, institutionalize monitoring and evaluation units in all ministries, and embed monitoring and evaluation into the planning and budgeting. We encourage investment into the youth and academia to grow the next generation of evaluators, and we encourage to empower champions within institutions who can lead the changes in the use of evaluations for better policy planning. And that's it. Thank you very much. I hope I was on time.
Thank you so very much. Yes, you were. And I'm so glad that you have also dealt with some of the other political matters, whereby you did speak about that evaluation overall is, in a lot of these countries, and including Pakistan, is perceived as a donor-driven activity, and it's not nationally owned. And that is why we don't even think of solutions. Of course, alongside with it, the capacities are weak, as you mentioned. And in some places, the policy and legal frameworks are underdeveloped. And of course, to top it up, the translation and the cultural gap also exist, which actually, make it a bigger issue. Uh, in the end, what you were mentioning, I think that is one of the key takeaways, that evaluation is not to be taken as an afterthought. It has to be embedded starting from your planning and budgeting. So, whether it's a project, policy, you need to think of evaluation from the starting. So, thank you so very much, Sophia. And the resource that she had mentioned has already been shared in the chat. And with that, we move on to our last panelist. And Chimgi, there are a couple of questions, because I know you guys have been doing a lot of work in Mongolia, but I'll just put forth the question. So, what are the practical challenges that you have particularly faced when translating M&E tools or trainings into your local language, and how the term evaluation has been commonly understood within the government systems in your context in Mongolia? So, over to you.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks very much for this opportunity to share about Mongolian Evaluation Association's efforts to introduce and to contextualize the taxonomy of evaluation in Mongolia. And I'm so happy today to join this Central Asia, my sisters and colleagues in the evaluation community, because Mongolia was one of the former Soviet Union country before 1990s, and many of what you shared is just like you were talking about what our history was going through up to this moment when it comes to evaluation. So very similar context, and now I'd like to share from a bit of different perspective on the language of evaluation. So my name is Ertin Chimge, and I'm founder of Mongolian Evaluation Association. So the topic is Bridging the Understanding of Taxonomy of Evaluation in Mongolia. So our association, the VOPE, we call it VOPE, Voluntary Organization for Professional Evaluation. The Mongolian Evaluation Association established during COVID in 2021 with the vision to promote professionalization and institutionalization of evaluation at national level in Mongolia. Because all of you, as you said, that it was a more donor-driven, and it kind of emerged during 1990 after the Soviet Union collapsed and democracy came to Mongolia. Many of the international organizations were coming to Mongolia, and they needed to evaluate their own projects and programs. So until COVID, I would say it was most of the evaluators were international people flying into Mongolia. But once the flights stopped, then the international organizations were announcing different biddings to national people and firms. So that's why we realized we don't have this association as the others, most of the other countries have, and they are doing the critical work to not only prepare their own national evaluators, also to help the government to institutionalize the evaluation system. So that's how we established. But from the very beginning of our establishment, we were facing the challenge of evaluation language, because we want to get registered as Mongolian Evaluation Association, but the word evaluation, it sounds unilge in Mongolian language, and it was already taken by the Mongolian Institute of Certified Appraisers. So appraiser and evaluation sounds exactly the same word as unilge, as it's in Russian Otsenka, right? So the state registration agency said, okay, it's a doubling, it's duplication of the word in Mongolian. So you need to find different word. So initially we were, okay, then we will reach this development evaluation, but we want to have the same consistent name of our VOPE as the other, like American Evaluation Association, Japan Evaluation Society. So what the other VOPEs have that name, right? And so then we applied, we submitted an official paper request to the National Council on Language, listing out these most common words like appraisal, assessment, review, and evaluation. What are the differences between these and how it's written in English? So, and then giving the clear examples of existing organizations. So as you see, like also as a Russian colleague explained, we exactly did the same exercise, and then the National Council on Language understood and accepted our request. So then we were able to introduce this new word evaluation into Mongolian language, but it's not in the Mongolian word, but as a word evaluation in the vocabulary of Mongolian words. So that's why we were able to get our Mongolian Evaluation Association name in Mongolian language. And as of now, we have over 250 members and 9 board members. And so it's really showing that there's a demand for people to learn about evaluation. But most of our members always say, we don't have experience, we don't know it, but we would like to learn. It seems like exciting field of career, and demand is there. So we are quite busy with all this our members and activities. So specifically about the language and how we are translating the evaluation resources into Mongolian. So I attended IPTET in 2022, I think. Yes, and then studied the first 1 week, do all these core modules of IPTET, 7 core modules. And then I asked Dr. Stefan if our association could translate these modules, because we have to have some basis to transfer knowledge on evaluation to our members and to our country colleagues. And she, sure, please go ahead, just put the IPTET logo somewhere. So of course that's a copyright issue. So we kept the IPTET course model as they are, exactly there, but we translated. So I think about 15 of our members, we divided the models among ourselves and translated without having very like a concrete or like a substantive knowledge, but we were hungry, to learn about what are the concepts, what are the examples. So we just translated without having any glossary or any, basis. So it was a quick and dirty kind of translation, but it was certainly well at the time. And then the next picture is this glossary of OCD DAC glossary. So a Mongolian Evaluation Association contributed to this ongoing exercise at that time by Canada-funded Merit Project. So they were having some time translating this. Then they found out about our association and asked if we could join the force to help with the translation. And it was the first time very meaningful exercise and engagement among the evaluation community in Mongolia, like this Merit Project themselves and some of the government representatives, and also our association, were many of our members involved. And then how we did it is like, I think quite many, like about 4 or 5 at least, we met in person, later on met virtually, going through each word and discussing among ourselves how it makes sense in our context, and but not really missing the key concept of this OECD DAC. So it was very participatory and very much in-depth consultative process, and the merit and OECD published it in 2023. Yeah, so, and then the last third picture is, so we were very encouraged from this exercise, and then we approached the April of 2023 OECD Megan, asking if we could translate this better criteria for better evaluation, and then she accepted it very well, and then we called out our volunteers from the association if they would like to take part in it, and then about 15 of our members translated this document, and we co-launched it with OECD DAC with Megan in 2023 October. And then we, we have uploaded it on our website. And also, I think Shawar will put the link here, and you can take a look at it later if you would like. So these are the kind of official engagement that we took part in, translating and contextualizing evaluation terms and glossary. And then this is quite a fresh photo from 2 weeks ago. So DEVAL, German Development Evaluation Institute, and Authority for Government Supervisory launched, disseminated the result of INSE. This is the National Evaluation Capacity Index this May. Actually, I think the 13th of May. And then Mongolian Evaluation Association played a key role introducing INSE to our government from last year on with our connection with DEVAL. And then our government took it really openly. And then because they would like to know where they are in terms of national evaluation capacity and where's the gap, how they can strengthen the weakness area. So in the past half year, we had weekly, monthly calls, and then translated the INSE survey into Mongolian language and contextualized. So our Mongolian Evaluation Association did the translation and contextualization of the survey. And then also, I think 146 organizations, including national and subnational government, CSO, international organization, private sector, academia, private firms, took part. And then, the reason why I'm mentioning this is we got overall 4.4 score out of 10. And what I really surprised and appreciated was that the director of the Authority of Government Supervisories in many department, which is the main body in the government in charge of M&E, she said, wow, this is quite a higher number than we expected. And then we asked, why do you think so? And she said, and her colleague said, because maybe the majority of the respondents understood evaluation as an M&E, because the majority of the 144 organizations are national and subnational government themselves. So as many of our colleagues before me mentioned, they understand evaluation as auditing, monitoring, compliance. So compliance, auditing, monitoring is very high in Mongolia because of our Soviet previous system that we'd like to comply to the government. So that's why they gave maybe higher numbers. But if the training on the monitoring and evaluation, now we have the new Order 43, which separated monitoring from the evaluation the first time. Previous orders were always together, monitoring and evaluation of the government policies and programs. So on this same day that we introduced the result, the Authority of Government Supervisory also first time introduced and trained the government civil servants on this new order. So the director of the M&E department, she was saying, if the training was given before this incident took place, then this score would have been different, maybe lower. So I really appreciated her honesty, and then also the growth mindset that maybe in 2 years later we will have a different picture, maybe even lower than 4.4. So that's an interesting experience we had. I wanted to share with you. And then, among the public, evaluation is understood more as a valuation, more like a finance type of valuation, because at our MEA phone office call, we receive many calls like asking from just general public asking, okay, we have water leakage from our household living in the upper stairs. Water leakage came into our apartment. Would you do valuation? Or I have we call like we just had a car accident. Would you do valuation? And we have a complaint that this mining has a different valuation than we expect. So these kind of calls we receive at our MEA Mongolian Evaluation Association office phone. So this shows there's quite a misunderstanding about among evaluation, our public, which is okay because it's our work and also mission at the association that we have to educate them and bridge this misgap of understanding. And this is my last slide. That we have this Evaluate Mongolia chapter. They are doing some efforts towards to educating the public in general, public on what's evaluation and what this does, etc. So we are hopeful that our younger generation and the young and emerging evaluators will also play a key role to bridge the gap of the right understanding of evaluation among our public. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much. I absolutely agree with Arushi, who's one of our participants, that your journey is very inspiring. And I think what you mentioned are the very basics which we ignore. So it's capacity building. Right, you utilized capacity building, IBDET, and by the way, the IBDET training, if others want to go and capture the opportunity, the registrations are still available, so you could go and check it out. But you guys actually put it into action and utilized it properly, and you started from very basic. But one thing I think that I hear from you is that you need local champions. Whether those are VOPs or in the government, but you need those champions who can then take initiative for local M&E development. So you can't depend on donors and outside the consultants and organizations can help, but it is actually the ownership within the country that actually takes it to the next level. And with that, I thank all my panelists. And we have 6 more minutes, but there are a few questions. Maybe we can take 1 or 2 questions, and then we would move towards the closing. Once again, if I may request my panelists to see the Q&A box, you can, maybe answer a few questions there. That would be great. I'm seeing already some are being answered. So Arushi Thapar asks that I often find it challenging to convey the value of an evaluation study to bureaucrats and policymakers. It's frequently perceived as an audit or inspection, irrespective of speaking in the native language, which makes them hesitate to support such studies or share existing data, let alone consider commissioning similar evaluations themselves. I'm wondering if there are more effective ways we can communicate the aims and objectives in a jargon-free but still meaningful way of our work to reduce this resistance. If anyone has strategies or examples of successful navigating this, I'll greatly appreciate if you could share. Maybe Niso, you could take this question, or if anybody else would like to answer, please feel free to do so.
Okay, just a moment. Thank you for the question. Also, the meaning of the question is the same, which I already answered for this chat. But anyway, I think that it is really difficult to explain the goal of the evaluation to the counterpart. Therefore, it's the one of the obligation of the evaluator, in my opinion, to explain to the stakeholders what will be the result of this evaluation, what kind of on the base of constructive dialogue, it will be useful to create some kind of evaluation learning during the evaluation. Because who are involved to the process of evaluation, there are also needs for some kind of to third part view for the actions and efforts on this implementation process. Therefore, the evaluations, it's very important in every start, as we know, according to the rules, it will be at the baseline evaluation, midterm evaluation, and end evaluation, but it will be important to know that the process of evaluation is not by the only evaluator, but also all key stakeholders who are involved in this process. For example, who are implementator of this project or action or something else. Evaluator came and he asked about some separate. In our case, we see that evaluators, especially is international experts who are not know the language and the mentality of the people. Therefore, we use the experience that we are combine the team of evaluators who are a national specialist and international specialist. But before the starting the evaluation, it will be good to create some kind of understanding who will be the national special, who know this process internally and know more things about how to explain to the during this evaluation process how to find the information and create the good evaluation report which support to the implementator to increase the capacity, to increase the process of implementation and learning in this process. This is my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Niso. And since we are running short on time, my apologies that we won't be able to take more questions. But we will share these questions with our panelists. And Shevar, if you could share our LinkedIn address over here, please follow us. And we will try to address these questions, in the next coming month over the channel. So thank you so very much for all of you to join us. And with that, I would like to call Dugan again to give the closing remarks for the session.
Wow. Honestly, I listened to a lot of M&E capacity building interventions, but today was really special for me. I so enjoyed hearing from such a powerful all-woman panel. Really fantastic. Starting with Sultanat and all the colleagues. Chimji, as you know, I'm always so inspired hearing your story and so impressed by the leadership that's been shown by you and everybody else. I'm going to keep this very short because we're almost out of time. I really encourage you to look at the questions in the chat box and to look at the answers to the questions. I find them very thoughtful. I find them very reflective. And I'm so inspired by the work that's being done in building this field. And I'm really, really reminded of the incredible community that we have out there. When I hear people talk about how they did IPDET, how they worked with DVAL on the INSEE, and all the mechanisms that are being put in place. But as we come to the core question that was discussed today, which is how language does or does not take forward this work, I am reminded that we have so much to do. We've traveled far, but we still have far to go. Don't forget, today was a teaser. It was a start. Next week is when the real business happens. I'm hoping you're going to join a bunch of sessions. I want to thank the panel once again for an absolutely fantastic session. Amna, as always, an absolutely wonderful moderator. To all the everybody listening, thank you so much. And to the GEI team, Megan and everybody else, Patricia, thank you for getting this all together. We look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you so much for this incredible session. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Take care, everyone. Have a good day.